Hi! Well, today we are back for chapter 13 of Surviving Bear Island. And if you remember, Tom had fixed his gaff. He's reattached the hook on that. And now he's going to go out and see what he can do with it. So here we go. The next day, gray, puffy clouds scudded across a blue sky. No rain, but the northerly breeze crawled up my sleeves and down my neck. Cold, just plain cold. But I'd noticed something. Rain clouds came from the south and stayed until a wind from the north blew them away. Patterns, weather patterns. Back in Fairbanks, who cared if it was 40 below in the winter when you had a warm house to hang out in or all the right clothes to go outside if you wanted to? You didn't really need to deal with the weather unless you lived in it. You only needed to pay attention to the things that were threatening you. I mean, sure, you paid attention to other things, but you didn't have to. Out here, I needed to pay attention to everything, like where I put my feet so I didn't fall. Was the hook secure on my gaff? Was a bear following me? Did I have enough firewood to at least last the night? Little mistakes could turn into big mistakes. Like my dad said, when you're alone in the wilderness, everything is magnified. I headed for the creek, ready to try my new gaff. At my kitchen, the coals from my cook fire had been scooped out and scattered. A pile of bear scat dotted with blueberries crowded the tree I'd slept under that first night. We are all potentially food for something else. Okay, I thought. All part of the cycle. Everything is made of recycled nutrients. Berries, bears, people. And once you're dead, you're just a pile of nutrients. Like, if I died out here, what happened to my body wouldn't matter. Bears would chew on me. Gulls would peck my eyes out. Bugs would gnaw on me. Flies would lay their eggs. They'd hatch, and the maggots would feed. I kicked the bear scat out from under the tree. This was still my kitchen. I wouldn't turn into bear food, not without a fight. I stopped to look and listen, then stepped out of the forest, squatted by the stream channel, and drank. I forded the first two channels, then walked across the gravel bar to the main channel, anxious to pull a struggling salmon from the stream. I scanned the water for signs of movement, for swaying dorsal fins, but all I saw was empty water. I squinted at the channel, like if I looked hard enough, they'd magically appear. Where are they? I said. I glanced upstream. I wanted to fish out in the open, where I could see. I didn't want to go up the creek and be closed in by trees and brush. But there had to be some fish up there. That's where they spawn. But there had to be bears, too. A cramp ran through my abdomen. I looked upstream. I took a step upstream. My chest felt raw, like I was breathing in tiny fragments of glass. The next couple of lines of my mom's song about leaving the yard ran through my head. It might be scary, especially at the start. You've got to take that step. You've got to have some heart. Where the gravel bar ended and the channels came together, the water ran deep. I backtracked a ways, crossed the side channel, and followed it up to the same spot on the stream bank. In the beach grass, I saw the rotting remains of bear-killed salmon. Make noise to let the bears know you are there, especially if you can't see very far. The last thing you want to do is surprise a bear in a tight spot. Hey bear, I called as I continued upstream, using the same phrase my dad used. The beach grass ended, and I entered the forest. The rush of the water seemed louder, echoing off the trees. My mom's lyrics about having heart kept popping into my head. I'd taken like 10 steps up the creek and was ducking under a fallen tree when I heard a big splash. I jumped backwards. and the back of my head slammed into the tree, and I fell on my face. My teeth dug into the wounds in my mouth, and I tasted blood. I rose to my knees. Hey bear, hey bear. I stood up and rubbed the back of my head and spit bloody saliva. If a dead tree could take me out, I really didn't stand a chance against a bear. There were no bears to be seen, but I made out the shape of a fish at the bottom of a deep pool. I raised the gaff and slammed it into the water, but missed the fish, which moved but stayed in the pool. I nosed the gaff into the water and tried to ease the hook under the fish and pull, but the fish kept evading me. A steady ache settled into the back of my head. I spit more bloody saliva, rinsed my mouth with creek water, and kept crawling over and under down trees, bashing through brush and shouting, "Hey bear," hoping to find a better spot. I rounded a bend and a flurry of movement burst upwards. My heart jumped to my throat as a bald eagle took flight from the bank. I just assumed every surprise movement was a bear. I mean, how could I not? I wanted to be ready, but why did I have to jump backwards? And why did my heart have to beat so hard? Could I teach myself to relax, to be alert but calm? Well, I had the alert part down. I was like one of those smoke detectors that beeped when you boiled water. We had one of those. The fire department gave it to us. It was supposed to be really good. After a couple days, my dad took the battery out of it because we couldn't boil water without it beeping. I rounded another bend. In the water, about 4 feet deep, half a dozen salmon, all facing upstream, sat in the bottom of the pool. The water ran shallow over small rocks where it flowed into the pool from upstream. One of the fish sprang forward and powered over the rocky area, then disappeared upstream. Perfect, I thought. Fish runs over shallows, and I snag it like a bear. So I waited, crouched by the shallow spot, ready to gaff the next fish to attempt the run. I don't know how long I waited, maybe 5 minutes, and none of those fish moved. My fingers were going numb, so I rubbed my hands together. I didn't want to put my gloves on and get them all slimy if I gaffed a fish and had to grab it. So I just kept waiting, rubbing my hands, wiggling my toes because they were getting cold too. "Come on, fish," I said softly. "You know you want to try it." Still, no fish. How long would a bear wait for a fish? A bear might not wait. A bear might just go into the water and try, stick its head under and go for a fish. Think like a bear, I thought. I knew I wasn't going to dive in, but maybe I could get one in the deep water. This water wasn't quite as deep as the pool downstream where I'd bashed my head. So I moved to the side of the pool. I focused on the closest fish, raised the gaff parallel to the water, and swung it down. The fish scrambled, 4 of the 5 disappearing downstream, the 5th jetting up through the rocky area. I just can't win. I gotta catch a fish. Patience. Remember what you do and don't have control over. Shut up, I shouted. Just shut up. I have control over how I act, not over how the fish act. They're trying to survive too. But I needed one, at least one. If I didn't eat something besides berries soon, my belly button would be touching my backbone. Okay, so the gaff only works when the fish are close to the surface. Yeah, I'd learned that twice now. But to not try was worse than trying and failing. But I couldn't just try the same stupid thing over and over. I glanced upstream. There had to be another shallow spot up there, a spot to snag a salmon. I climbed over the rocks and continued upstream. The brush was thicker, and a couple of spots I had to part it with my hands like I was swimming the breaststroke. And everything was damp, and the water started working its way up my sleeves. I tried cinching my cuffs down on my raincoat, but the Velcro kept loosening up on its own. And the creek was a narrow, deep channel. I just hoped it spread out again. I heard a branch snap, and this time I didn't jump out of my boots or slam my head against any hard objects, but just stopped and looked. A wall of black fur disappeared into the brush in front of me. I stared at the spot. I wanted to keep going upstream. I had to eat, but didn't want to be eaten. I kicked at the moss covering a log until it came free, then stomped on it. Then I saw movement on the other side of the creek, branches waving in the wind, but there was no breeze. More black fur. Then a bear cub was at the edge of the creek. I took a step back. The cub lapped some water from the creek, its nose resting on the surface. It was cute, made you think you want to sit down and play with it, but I knew it was a death trap. Mothers protected their cubs. I turned around and picked my way downstream, glancing over my shoulder every couple of steps. Alert but calm, I thought. I didn't freak out and do something stupid. I was starting to really get this. If you didn't threaten something or act like you were super nervous, then whatever else was around mellowed out too. I broke out of the forest and walked along the stream bank through the beach grass, relieved to be out in the open. I'd rather starve than get attacked by a bear. If I had to eat berries, I'd eat berries. I had to eat something. The more energy I spent looking for food, the hungrier I'd get. I just spent a few hours crawling up that creek and had nothing to show for it, except I'd learned that my gaff only worked if the fish were close to the surface, and that being calm is a good thing. And yeah, I'd left the yard and learned I had to keep leaving the yard. I didn't have time to learn things the slow way, the way Mom said she'd become a better guitar player and writer. Slow and steady. That was fine if you weren't trying to survive. Sure, I'd concentrate on gaffing a fish if I found some, but I couldn't spend weeks figuring out where they were. The creek flared to the right, and the beach grass grew taller, neck high. I took a breath and reminded myself to be alert but calm. I took another step, and a faint rustling invaded my ears. Then I saw white, and more white, and some gray, and I relaxed and just stood there. And that was my first mistake. Not looking where I was going as I backed up was my second. And that's the end of chapter 13. We'll find out what happens to Tom tomorrow in chapter 14.